What if one of the most cheerful shows on television was secretly falling apart behind the scenes? A star who hid her pregnancy under layers of fabric. A co-star who urinated on the set. A belly button that triggered a boardroom crisis at a major network. And an executive who killed the show by trying to save it. I Dream of Jeannie looked like pure lighthearted fun every single week. But the real story happening off camera was stranger than anything a genie could conjure. Here are 10 weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie, 1965. You never knew. Fact 10. Jeannie's bottle was a whiskey decanter. Before it became one of the most recognizable props in television history, Jeannie's magical bottle was sitting in a liquor store window with a price tag of $5.99. Either creator Sidney Sheldon or first director Gene Nelson spotted a 1964 Jim Beam Christmas edition bourbon decanter while walking past a store and knew immediately it was the right choice. The shape was exotic, the glass was distinctive, and the whole thing looked like it could have come from an Arabian palace if you squinted at it the right way. That was the entire discovery process for an object that would become a television icon. The art department took the whiskey bottle and hand-painted it with gold leaf and elaborate detailing to transform it from a liquor store impulse buy into something that looked like it belonged in another world. Among the weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, this one lands hardest because of the contrast. The bottle millions of viewers associated with magic and mystery started life as something any American could purchase before the holidays for less than the cost of a decent meal. The show actually went through around 12 of these bottles over 5 seasons, and that number tells you something about the effects process. The smoke used for Jeannie's appearances was generated by real chemicals and heat elements rigged inside the glass. The combination was intense enough to crack and shatter the bottles regularly. A dedicated stunt bottle took all the punishment during effects shots, while the hero bottle stayed safe on the shelf between filming days. Barbara Eden was given one of the surviving bottles on the last day of filming as a keepsake. That bottle, which started its life full of Jim Beam bourbon in a liquor store window, now sits in the Smithsonian National Museum of American History as a permanent piece of television history. From a $5.99 shelf item to a national museum. That is the full arc of that prop, and nothing about it was planned. Before moving ahead, take a quick second to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next story. Fact 9. The belly button controversy was invented by a reporter. The version most people have heard goes like this. NBC censors were watching Barbara Eden's costume from the beginning and immediately cracked down on any glimpse of her navel. It sounds like a classic story of 1960s network prudishness. The reality is considerably stranger, because the controversy did not exist until a single reporter decided to create it out of nothing. In the early episodes, Eden's midriff was occasionally visible when her costume shifted or she lifted her arms, and nobody at the network said a single word about it. There was no memo, no complaint, no concerned executive calling the set. A writer from The Hollywood Reporter visited during production and became fixated on whether he could see Eden's belly button, turning it into a running joke between them. Eden played along with the absurdity, telling him she would charge him a nickel for a look and raising the price every time he pushed the question further. He found it funny. He wrote about it. Other outlets picked up the story, and just like that, a controversy was born that had never actually existed before he arrived on set. Among the weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965, this one is a clear example of how easily a media narrative can take on a life of its own. Producer George Schlatter from a popular variety show decided he wanted to premiere Eden's belly button on his program as a comedic stunt. That idea genuinely alarmed NBC executives, who suddenly realized they were holding a controversy they had done nothing to create and had no obvious way to diffuse. They responded the only way television networks know how. They held a meeting. A full boardroom of network executives sat around a table and formally debated whether a belly button should be visible on American television. They issued what became known as the No Navel Edict. From that point forward, censors reviewed footage carefully to ensure Eden's navel never appeared on screen, even while the same network had no issue showing bikini-clad women in beach scenes on other programs. One reporter's running joke with an actress became official network policy for 5 full seasons, and the punchline of a story that people still repeat today. Fact 8. Barbara Eden was pregnant. During filming, on the exact same day NBC officially greenlit I Dream of Jeannie for production. In 1965, Barbara Eden sat down with Sidney Sheldon and told him she was pregnant with her first child. In the 1960s, that kind of news from a leading actress could end a production before it ever started. Studios had replaced stars for less, and pregnancy was still treated as something to be hidden rather than accommodated. Sheldon faced a real decision and chose to keep Eden as his star and work around the situation instead of replacing her. And the production shifted into a higher gear immediately. They filmed the first 10 episodes back-to-back as quickly as possible, racing against a biological clock that was not going to pause for anyone's shooting schedule. Director G. Nelson developed what he informally called the ATB shot, which stood for above the baby. Cameras were positioned high, focused on Eden's face and upper body, and crew members were instructed to avoid anything below her midsection. When a scene required Jeannie to move across the room, the camera followed her arm rather than her full body, creating unusual movements that audiences accepted without question, because they had no reason to look for anything strange. This is one of those weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965 that explains choices in those early episodes that always seemed slightly off without any obvious reason. The costume department added layer after layer of flowing fabric and veils to Jeannie's already elaborate outfit, building up the volume around Eden's midsection until she later joked she looked like a walking tent. Larry Hagman recalled the frantic energy of those early weeks, telling interviewers that the crew kept adding more fabric because Eden kept getting bigger and the timeline kept getting shorter. Most viewers never noticed a single thing throughout those 10 episodes. Eden gave birth to her son Matthew during the production hiatus and returned to complete the series without any visible disruption to the show's continuity. 10 episodes filmed at full speed, mountains of layered fabric, carefully angled cameras, and an entire network holding its breath. It all worked. The audience had no idea anything unusual was happening during what should have been an impossible situation to manage. Fact 7. Larry Hagman urinated on the set. Larry Hagman's behavior during the production of I Dream of Jeannie was documented by multiple people who worked alongside him, and the picture they painted was consistent. He drank large quantities of champagne every single morning at the studio before cameras ever started rolling. Between scenes, he retreated to his dressing room to smoke marijuana and consume more champagne, which he described to people as a method of maintaining calm serenity throughout the working day. The people who shared the set with him described something far less serene. The frustration driving Hagman's behavior was not hard to identify. He was the son of Broadway legend Mary Martin, one of the biggest theatrical stars of the 20th century, and he had spent years trying to step out from under her shadow. When I Dream of Jeannie premiered, and audiences fell deeply in love with Barbara Eden's Jeannie while treating Major Tony Nelson as a supporting character in his own show, the pressure Hagman was already carrying became significantly heavier. He wanted to be the star. The audience had decided otherwise, and the gap between those two realities widened season after season. The situation eventually deteriorated to a point that Barbara Eden wrote about in her memoir without softening or minimizing the details. Hagman, in a state that reflected how badly things had broken down, urinated on the set. Eden described it plainly and directly. Among the weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965, this one requires no embellishment because the bare fact is already remarkable enough on its own. Producers reached a genuine breaking point and developed a complete storyline that would have written Hagman out of the show. In the planned scenario, Major Nelson would somehow lose Jeannie, and actor Darren McGavin would find her bottle instead and become her new master. The scripts existed. The plan was real. Ultimately, the producers decided not to go through with it, and Hagman remained in the role through all 5 seasons. But the fact that the replacement plan got that far tells you everything you need to know about how serious the situation on that set had actually become. Fact 6. The signature blink was invented by a dancer. Jeannie's crossed arms and quick blink is one of the most imitated gestures in television history. It is simple, clean, immediately recognizable, and has been recreated by viewers of every age for decades since the show aired. Ask anyone who has ever seen even a single episode, and they will demonstrate it without hesitation. But the gesture was never in any script, never came out of any creative meeting, and was never part of any formal character design process. It came from one person, in one moment, with no planning at all. Gene Nelson, the show's first director, created the gesture before filming began. Nelson was not simply a television director with a standard industry background. He had been a professional dancer and choreographer in Hollywood musicals for decades, working through the 1940s and 1950s on productions that required him to think about movement, physical storytelling, and how bodies communicate emotion and personality on screen. That training gave him an instinct for visual moments that a conventional director might never have reached for. This is one of those weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965 that reshapes how you think about the show. When Nelson needed to figure out how Jeannie's magic would look on screen, he did not reach for special effects first. He thought about what the character's body could do that would be memorable and repeatable without becoming tiresome. The crossed arms created a clean and elegant silhouette that worked beautifully against Jeannie's costume. The blink added exactly the right note of whimsy. Together, they communicated magic without requiring anything beyond what Eden could do with her own face and arms. Barbara Eden confirmed in interviews that the gesture came together quickly and naturally, almost as if it had always existed and Nelson had simply found it. The move was easy for her to perform take after take without fatigue. It photographed well from any angle, and it was distinctive enough to become permanently associated with the character. Nelson came up with it and moved on. The crossed arms and blink did the rest for the next 50 years without any additional help from anyone. Fact 5. A Looney Tunes legend made the opening credits, the animated opening sequence of I Dream of Jeannie, with its swirling pink smoke, playful bottle, and cartoon version of Jeannie dancing through the frame. Ori was created by one of the most accomplished animators in Hollywood history. Most viewers watched it every week without knowing whose hands had built it. That was entirely standard practice at the time, but it meant that one of television's most recognized opening sequences carried a credit that nobody ever actually saw. Isidore Ferling had directed over 300 cartoons during his career at Warner Brothers, building the visual language and comedic timing behind characters like Bugs Bunny, Tweety Bird, Sylvester the Cat, Porky Pig, and Yosemite Sam. He won 5 Academy Awards for his work in animation, which put him among the most decorated artists in the history of the medium. After Warner Brothers closed their animation studio in 1963, Frayling partnered with David DePatia to form DePatie Frayling Enterprises, Anders, and one of their first television assignments was creating the title sequence for Genie. Among the weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965, this one connects 2 worlds most people would never think to put together. Frayling actually produced two distinct versions of the opening, a black and white sequence for the first season and a fully expanded color version for season 2, which featured an animated depiction of Captain Nelson's space capsule splashing down on a beach, Jeannie dancing out of her newly decorated bottle, a kiss, and then the bottle pulling her back in at the end. The same studio that produced the Pink Panther cartoons and later contributed animation work to the original Star Wars film was responsible for what Genie viewers saw before every single episode. Les Dipati Frayling Enterprises received no on-screen credit anywhere in the show's closing titles. That was considered completely normal for title animation work during the 1960s, and nobody involved pushed back against it. A 5-time Oscar-winning animator built one of the decade's most recognized television openings, and his name never appeared on the screen once. Most of the audience had no idea who had made what they were watching. Fact 4. Barbara Eden played 3 different characters. Most viewers know Barbara Eden as Jeannie, the warm and endlessly optimistic blonde Jeannie in the pink harem costume. A smaller portion of fans know she also played Jeannie's evil twin sister, a scheming brunette in green, who appeared across multiple episodes trying to steal Tony away or cause some form of chaos. Very few people realized at the time that both characters were the same actress, and fewer still know she added a third role on top of those two before the series ended. Jeannie's evil twin, referred to in the show's scripts as Genie 2, was constructed to be Jeannie's complete opposite in every visible and behavioral way. Dark hair instead of blonde, green costume instead of pink, manipulative and calculating instead of sweet and genuine. Eden built a genuinely distinct personality for the character, not just a costume change, and the results were convincing enough that fan mail arrived at the studio asking who the actress was who played the sister. Viewers were not looking at a star in a wig. They were watching what felt like a different person entirely. While the character had been written by a former Bewitched writer who had quietly been working on both shows simultaneously until the arrangement was discovered and he was let go. This is one of those weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965 that speaks directly to how underrated Eden's range actually was throughout the run of the show. In season 4, she also took over the role of Jeannie's mother, a part that had previously been played by 2 different actresses in earlier episodes. The producers decided to consolidate the character under Eden, which meant that some episodes required her to play both Jeannie and her own mother within the same 30 minutes of television. Scenes that placed both Jeannies in the same frame required careful choreography, precise camera placement, and the use of stand-ins to make the illusion hold together on screen. Eden performed against herself convincingly enough that the scenes worked, and the character dynamics remained clear even when the same face was appearing on both sides of the conversation. 3 separate characters, 5 seasons, 1 actress, and a majority of the audience never fully registered what they were actually watching week after week. Fact 3. The safe combination was dubbed in at the last minute. During the 2nd season, the show's producers built an ambitious multi-episode storyline around Jeannie getting trapped inside a large safe, with the only solution being the correct 3-number combination to open it. Rather than simply resolving the plot within a single episode, the producers decided to turn the combination into a viewer contest. What audiences at home could submit their guesses for what the numbers might be, and the winner would be revealed when the final episode of the arc aired. For 1966 television, it was a genuinely creative, interactive idea. The problem that developed was significant. When the episodes were filmed, the producers had not actually settled on what the combination would be. The contest was already running and building audience engagement, while the answer to the contest remained completely undecided behind the scenes. This created a practical challenge that required the production team to think carefully about how to film scenes in which Hagman's character needed to say the combination out loud on screen to open the safe and free Jeannie. Among the weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965, this is the one that genuinely rewards a second viewing once you know what to look for. Watch the camera work carefully in every scene where Major Nelson speaks the combination. His mouth is always positioned behind the safe itself. The shot cuts away to show Jeannie's reaction before he finishes speaking. The angles are specific and consistent, and none of it looks accidental once you understand why those particular choices were made. The crew filmed it that way because they had nothing to put in Hagman's mouth yet. There were no numbers to say. Once the producers finally settled on 4, 9, 7 as the winning combination, just before the final episode was set to broadcast, they brought Hagman into a recording studio and had him record his voice, saying those specific numbers. The audio was then carefully synchronized with the footage that had already been shot, matching his dubbed voice to the frames where his lips were either hidden or not clearly visible. Barbara Eden appeared during the closing credits of the final episode to announce the winning combination personally and congratulate the viewer who had submitted the correct answer. The whole elaborate contest had been built on a resolution that did not exist when they started filming it. Fact 2. The show shared a set with its direct competitor. I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched were competing against each other for the same audience through most of the 1960s. Both shows followed a supernatural woman living alongside a skeptical and often overwhelmed husband in a domestic setting. Both pulled strong ratings. Both shaped the fantasy sitcom genre in ways that influenced television for decades after they ended. The two productions were genuine rivals, and their respective networks understood that clearly. What neither network ever mentioned publicly was that the two shows were also sharing a set. The house used for Dr. Alfred Bellows and his wife on Jeannie was the same physical construction used for Samantha and Darren Stevens' home on Bewitched, redressed with different furniture, paint colors, and decorative choices to make it read as a completely different residence. The architecture was identical because it was literally the same building. The walls, the layout, the bones of the space had appeared on Bewitched since 1964. The same structure was simply reinterpreted to serve a second show that was actively competing with the first. This is one of those weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965 that becomes almost impossible to unsee once the knowledge is in your head. Television historians have documented the overlap across multiple episodes, with the Season 2 Jeannie episode in which Mrs. Bellows takes the bottle home to have a replica made being the most frequently cited example. Viewers who watched both shows in their original broadcasts were looking at the same domestic space 2 nights a week on different networks without anyone ever acknowledging it. Set sharing was standard Hollywood practice during this period and saved significant money on construction costs that could be redirected elsewhere in a production budget. But the arrangement takes on an entirely different character when the two productions involved were direct competitors chasing the same viewers every single week. The walls that housed Samantha Stevens and her television marriage also housed the secret of Jeannie's existence. Both shows called the same set home, and neither one ever said a word about the other. Fact 1. A network executive killed the show by trying to save it. By the close of Season 4, I Dream of Jeannie had spent 4 years as a successful and stable part of NBC's lineup. The ratings were holding, the audience was loyal, and the formula that had worked from the beginning was still working. Nothing about the show's performance suggested it needed intervention of any kind. Then NBC executive Mort Werner decided the show had a structural problem that needed to be corrected before Season 5 could proceed. Werner's concern was the living arrangement. An unmarried woman sharing a home with a bachelor had become, in his view, too suggestive for the network's standards even though that exact dynamic had been the foundation of the show for 4 successful years and had never generated serious complaints from viewers or advertisers. He contacted Sidney Sheldon and made his position clear. Tony and Jeannie needed to get married in season 5, or the show would not be renewed for another year. Sheldon pushed back with as much clarity as he could bring to the argument. He explained to Werner directly that the tension between Jeannie and her master was not a background element of the show, but the actual engine driving everything that was funny and interesting about it. Once that tension was resolved by marriage, it would not reconfigure itself into something new. It would simply disappear. Barbara Eden shared the same view. The cast shared the same view. Everyone who had spent years building the show understood what Werner apparently could not. Among the weird facts about I Dream of Jeannie 1965, this one is the sharpest because the outcome was entirely preventable and everyone involved could see it coming. Werner held firm. NBC would not renew without the wedding. Sheldon eventually wrote it into season 5 because he had no other option available to him. The ratings declined steadily as the season progressed, exactly as predicted. The tension that had sustained 4 years of comedy was gone, replaced by standard married couple storylines that felt indistinguishable from dozens of other sitcoms already on the air. NBC canceled I Dream of Jeannie at the end of that season. A network executive looked at a healthy show, decided he understood it better than the people who created and performed it, imposed a change that everyone warned him against, and watched the show fail precisely the way they said it would. The real story of A Dream of Jeannie was never the genie or the bottle or the magic. It was a show held together by one actress's genuine talent, quietly coming apart from the inside and ultimately ended by someone who thought he was helping. Which of these facts surprised you most? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss one.